Hi everyone, my name is Emily Gervais, and I conducted my process improvement project at Salem State University. And I chose the topic of the benefits of establishing an English as a second language workplace class. So before I get started about the specifics, I'd like to just tell you a little bit about how I designed my presentation. So I conducted my research and I presented my topic to my preceptor, and he seemed a little skeptical at first, just because he didn't know really how it would fit into Salem State. So the way I conducted my presentation was more of like a business plan or a pitch to my preceptor to convince him that this is something that they needed. So that's just how I presented it in this presentation as well. So my literature review is within the entire presentation and not just in the beginning, just to give a little background about that. So the objectives for my presentation and project were to review the current research involving English as a second language in the workplace and determine the best practices to apply to Salem State University. I also wanted to determine the benefits for employees and employers of hosting an English as a second language class and attending these classes. And then lastly, I wanted to develop a plan that Salem State can implement in the future. So just a little background information about Salem State. It's actually it just became a university. So it has about 9,000 students on campus, 3,000 are residents, 6,000 are commuters. And this is important because most of these students are eating on campus because they are required to have a meal plan. So this just affects about how many people come into the dining halls each day. And I'll get a little more into the employees of where I interned, which was Marsh Hall, the main dining hall. But I just wanted to start off saying that we have about 30 employees and 20 have Spanish as their primary language. So as you can imagine, there's probably a little confusion in the kitchen as far as communication, which got into why I chose this topic. So, before again I get started on my program, I just want to talk a little bit about what an English as a second language workplace class actually is. So, these classes focus on literacy, basic skills that people need to gain employment, retain present jobs, or advance in their careers and increase productivity. So, there's many different ways these classes can be held, and one way is during work hours, and they focus on sector-specific vocab, building communication skills, and introducing reading and writing. And this was all conducted by my research that I found, and it was through the University of Tennessee Office of Education. So all my information was based on this site and a couple other sites that I'll talk about as I present. So this is the plan that I created for my preceptor, and it just goes step through step with what you have to do to actually implement a English as a second language class. The first step is to assess the needs of the selected population, which I'll talk about next. The second step is to build support for the program by involving all stakeholders. Step 3 is develop a program plan and identify goals, ensure adequate resources, select the facility, and the class equipment. Step 4 is to design the curriculum. Step 5 is to implement the program. And step 6 is to evaluate and monitor the program. And as I said earlier, the University of Tennessee Office of Education was really helpful for this, and also an introduction to ESL in the workplace that was put out by the U.S. Department of Education in 2000 was really helpful, and a lot of my information came from these sites. So step 1, what is the issue and why is this project necessary for Salem State? So as I said earlier, 20 out of the 30 employees, or 67%, speak Spanish. And of these 20 employees, 10 only speak Spanish, they do not speak any English, and they communicate in no English at all while at work. 5 are bilingual, so they really aren't an issue. They can speak Spanish and English perfectly. And 5 have very limited English skills. So there really is no communication in the kitchen, and it really can be an issue with safety, reproducing recipes, having concerns and questions, and even if they are having problems and the boss can't tell them how to fix these problems. And when I was observing the flow of the kitchen, I also realized that none of the recipe books, the safety information, the material safety data sheets, the HACCP, and any other documents, they're all in English. So these Spanish-speaking employees, they have no way of communicating or making sure that what they're doing is correct. So this is why I felt that an ESL workplace program needed to be implemented at Salem State. So the second step is to build support. And if you don't have employer support, then you can't implement the program. And this is something that my preceptor was a little bit concerned about. So I wanted to just talk about what these benefits are that he has by implementing this program. And because this program couldn't actually be implemented right now, they were having a lot of staff turnover. We're looking for a new executive chef, and we are also getting a new assistant food service director, so it wasn't really the best timing. So I couldn't conduct a cost and benefit analysis. So the way I did accomplish that was just by giving these benefits, which there might not be a cost associated with them, but there is research out there indicating that these programs are really worth it. So some of the benefits include enhanced worker skills, better customer service, and this really it goes to the students because the students pay their paychecks. So if the students aren't happy, no one is. There's greater employee retention, which is proven, according to Bloom and LaFour, that employee retention costs businesses $11 billion per year because they have to find new employees. Also, increased productivity, enhanced communication between workers, is, as you can tell, everyone needs to be able to communicate in the kitchen in order for things to go smoothly. Improved worker safety because no one wants OSHA at their site. Reduced error rate and reduced production waste. And at Chartwells, which provides the dining services at Salem State, they are really into making sure that every recipe is replicated exactly. So if they don't have it in their own language, then they can't communicate. And I won't be actually giving them these recipes in Spanish, but what I will be doing is providing these classes to help them. And even if it's not to completely read the recipe, they can at least communicate with someone else to get what they need from the recipe. Also, more support. If they don't have employee support, then there's no point in doing this. So a study conducted by Rosetta Stone in 2014 found that 8 in 10 employees report that learning English improves their performance at work, makes them more productive, and increases their confidence in communicating with other employees. And that 89% of workers feel more positively toward their current employer, and 84% feel more engaged at work. While 9 in 10 employees believe language training is relevant to their job duties, and 86% report a direct positive impact on their job performance. And this is all really important because employees want to go to work if they know that they have support. And if they don't, they're not going to want to go to work. So this is something really big for them, knowing that their employer cares enough to provide these resources. I also wanted to just kind of talk about what other people are saying, and I found this through the U.S. Department of Labor, and that all employers really want to invest in their language deficient workforce, but they don't believe that they have the proper resources to help them do so. So some of what they're doing is just providing language-free education materials by relying on colors and pictures. And they also express their interest in the development of sector-specific language and communication models that would allow them to retain high rates of production and keep costs low while helping their LEP workforce advance in their careers. So this is something really important, just so my preceptor and everyone else knows that this is a common occurrence. And also really important is just to talk about what other examples of effective workplace models are there out there. And McDonald's has the English Under the Arches program, which is a really popular program. And they actually provide English classes which are not on during work hours, but they pay for them so their employees can learn English because they really know the value of their employees and promoting within. And Wegmans Food Market is also a really big supporter of promoting their English proficient workers. So they have provided English classes as well. And they actually made it to Forbes' top list of employers to work for because of these programs. So they really are effective. And that is shown through research that was conducted by Bloom and LaFour. So step 3 is to develop the plan and identify the goals. So because I couldn't actually develop the ESL program, I kind of just provided guidelines that were provided by the U.S. Department of Education. And these goals need to be created through the ESL instructor and the employer. So when they decide to develop their goals, they should keep in mind that adults are practical, problem-solving oriented learners. They want their learning to be immediate, and they want to know why they're learning it. Goals should also be sensitive to students' backgrounds and experiences, include opportunities for students to speak, listen, read, write, and interact in English, and include one new linguistic skill and/or new piece of information in each lesson. And it's really important to make sure that you keep the students' backgrounds and experiences in mind because they may not be proficient in reading and writing in their own language, so they're not going to be in English. And it was actually shown that 46% of Hispanic population in Massachusetts were actually below basic literacy level. So that's just something to take into consideration when making these programs. So step 3 also is to ensure adequate resources. And it's really important because a lot of employers may not have the funds to do this, but Massachusetts is lucky enough to have the Workforce Training Fund program, where it is a grant that's awarded to any companies that apply, that is awarded up to $250,000 and can be used on any employee training, not just language training. And as long as they apply and they meet the needs of the grant, they can get this. And the only thing they need to do is to pay, match what the grant has given. So this would be through labor. And this is really important, as I'll talk about later, because they will be doing this training while at work. So this really isn't going to cost Salem State any money at all. The step 4 is to design the curriculum, and the curriculum topics that should be included in the workforce training programs include communication skills, which would be things like greeting customers and asking questions, making small talk. The second is following directions and instructions, which would be for quality control, asking for feedback or giving directions, responding to warnings, understanding food safety rules, and following other safety rules. Job-specific terminology, which would be anything that includes food service talk and other worker-related terminology such as personal hygiene, cultures with food and eating habits of the American culture, understanding workplace hierarchies, management functions, the unwritten rules, and upgrading and promotions so they can understand what kind of job openings there are and if they should apply for them. So these classes also need to be learner-centered. And there was research conducted in the late 90s by Aucherbeck and Wallerstein. They are teachers. And they determined that to have a successful ESL class, it needs to be learner-centered, which means that all this information needs to be able to apply to their lives outside of work. Because if you can't capture the audience, they're not going to want to go to class, and it's going to be all a huge waste of effort. The class should also emphasize group work because they learn better this way, and it also gets them to start feeling like they are a part of a team. And they need to incorporate authentic, plain English language, basically language that they can understand that's easy for them.